First two schemes I want to talk about are the single project and Slate development funding. Single projects and Slate development, what is it? Basically, it's money to help you put together a really attractive package that you could then take to look for further investment for your documentary. So we'll support research, we'll support travel to festivals and markets, we can support the kind of presentation materials, flyers, teaser footage that you might want to show to potential broadcasters, distributors, sales agents, whoever that is. How much is available for documentaries really depends on whether you're applying for the single project scheme or the Slate funding. For single project, the grants are awarded in lump sum amounts, so 25,000 euros for the one project. If you apply for Slate funding, then you would apply with a slate of between 3 and 5 projects. Each project on the slate can be awarded between 10,000 and 60,000 euros. And the sort of overall total of the slate is between 70,000 or 200,000 euros. That's if the project is a mix of documentary, fiction, or animation projects. If it's just a documentary slate, then you'd be looking at that being capped at 150,000 euros as your total grant awarded. And we would expect you to match the money that we give you. So it doesn't need to be confirmed at the time that you apply, but in your application, you would be setting out your strategy for where you plan to get that money from. You can apply for projects that are intended for theatrical release. In this case, they need to be a minimum of 60 minutes in length. If your project's intended for TV or for a digital platform, so it could be an interactive documentary or some kind of web series, then the minimum length would be 50 minutes, and that's either for a one-off or for a series. The total length of the series could add up to 50 minutes. When we talk about digital platforms, we're really looking at the user experience. So again, that full user experience needs to come in at around 50 minutes at least. Another important element to note is that your first day of principal photography should be at least 8 months from the date that you plan to submit the application, from the date that you submit the application form. So you need to show within your development strategy that you have at least 8 months development in front of you. Obviously with documentary, it's not as cut and dry with fiction or with animation as when you're kind of entering that period, but you would be setting out a planned date in the form. So who can apply? For both schemes, applicant companies must be established in one of the countries participating in the program, and majority owned by nationals from those countries. So we'll be looking at the passports of the shareholders. And so long as half of the company is owned by European nationals, then you'd be eligible to apply. You need to be registered with Companies House for a minimum of 12 months for single, or 36 months for the Slate funding, 3 years. And you also need to have audiovisual production as your main business activity. So for that, we'll be looking at the business code that you're registered with through Companies House. You need to be independent from broadcasters, and you need to own the majority of the rights to the project. That could either be through an option agreement or a contract of transfer of rights, or if it's something that's developed in-house within your own company, there'd be some sort of agreement assigning those rights to the company. You also need to be able to demonstrate a required track record. And for single and Slate, those rules are slightly different. So you can see for single project, we just need one eligible track record project. The track record project needs to meet the minimum length requirements in a similar way to the project that you're submitting. And for single project, we expect that track record project to have had a official release or broadcast. It says after 2014 here, but actually for the deadline coming up, it's the 1st of January 2013. For Slate, we'd expect 2 projects for the applications coming from the larger countries. So any application from Germany, Spain, Italy, France, and the UK, we're deemed as a big country in terms of our production capacity, so we're required to submit 2 track record projects. They need to have been produced recently, so produced within the last 5 years, and then officially released or broadcast. In this case for Slate, it would be 2014 for the next deadline. And the difference again with Slate is that for single, you can have the release anywhere. It can be a cinema release or a TV broadcast in that time frame. For Slate, we're really looking at the releases outside of the country of the applicant. So the film or the TV program needs to have either been broadcast or had a cinema release in 3 countries outside of the UK. And it's commercial releases we're looking for, so festival screenings don't count, unfortunately. So just quickly then, how are points awarded for the single project scheme? There's 100 points available. The majority go to the quality of the project. So the treatment that you write, any additional creative information you can give on what the end project might look like. Its potential for European distribution, that could be something within the story that could appeal to certain audiences within the EU. It could be particular talent attached, experience of the producer in the past. There's many sort of hooks you could sort of make the case for, and you'd be expected to do that within the application. The development strategy is the strategy that you write in the application that explains how you plan to spend our money, and there's 10 points awarded to that. And then there's also a distribution and marketing strategy where you talk about festivals you plan to attend, distributors you might be working with, having conversations with, or would like to have conversations with, and why they'd be a good fit for the project. How you plan to, who your target audience is and how you plan to get the documentary out to them, either through sort of early stages throughout the production process or once the final film is made. What's your festival strategy, that kind of thing. Organization of the project team. They're quite keen to see, who is doing what within the team, and showing that certain tasks and responsibilities have been assigned to different people. And then you're also expected to write 2 financing strategies. One, as I mentioned, is how you would match the grant that we give you. And then the other is how you would go about raising finance for the full project, offering some different scenarios for that. There's also a number of automatic points awarded to single project applications. Unfortunately, UK applicants don't count for the first 2 because we are a large production capacity country. But if your project is targeted at a young audience, specifically under 16-year-olds, then you would be getting 10 automatic points. Quick overview of how points are awarded for the Slate scheme then. You can see it's slightly different. Here we're really looking at the company, and it's all about the capacity of the company to be developing projects simultaneously, to be working with co-production partners and international sales agents, distributors already. It's kind of more about a company development grant to sort of already support the work that you're doing on an international scale already. There are points regarding the quality of the slate, so the projects on the slate. Again, that encompasses the development strategies you would write, the financing strategies, and the European dimension of the project. So if there are co-production partners involved or particular other sort of financing or distribution partners that you're looking to work with, then that would all be taken into account. The distribution, marketing strategy, and then, again, organization of the project team. One difference from the single project to the Slate funding is that for Slate, we're really looking for companies that are innovating, so doing something a little bit different, adapting to sort of a changing media landscape, if you like. So there is a section within the form where you would be writing and justifying how your company has done that, either by working through different genres, working with new talent, going about things in a slightly different way for some of your previous projects, or there might be projects on the slate that you want to do things slightly differently too. That will all be taken into account and could score you some points. There's also automatic points available for the Slate funding, but they're not ones that UK applicants are eligible for, unfortunately. So we just had some single project results come through last week, and I just wanted to give a kind of quick overview of some statistics for how they shape up. So from the documentary projects that were selected, 102 were submitted, and 17 were selected in the last deadline. We have 2 single project deadlines a year. last one was in November, and there's another one coming up on the 21st of April, next week. In terms of how the overall pot of the selected projects was split up, you can see documentary is kind of in the middle. So the majority of selected projects are fiction, with 31, 17 documentaries, and then 8 animations. They're the 3 categories of projects that we can fund. And those automatic points do make a difference. As you can see, 15 of the selected projects do have points awarded to them for the country of their origin. So if you are working with co-production partners, that's something to bear in mind as well. Okay, tips for your development application. If you are thinking of submitting an application, we're here to help you with that. We can read through the application before it gets sent into Brussels, check through the eligibility criteria, all of that stuff. What I would say is be as specific as possible about your project. It's not a kind of one-size-fits-all distribution strategy. They want to see that you've really thought about how your strategies are tailored specifically to what you want to try and achieve with this project. Be factual and coherent, it probably goes without saying, but you'd be surprised. And substantiate, so really try and justify all of your choices. If you're planning to attend IDFA, what are you aiming to get out of it? What is your strategy for the research that you plan to undertake? What is the outcome? You've really got to sort of give those explanations. Set out your detailed plan of action, and it really does have to feel like a plan of action. So, as much detail as possible, and kind of not wishy-washy. So it's make it feel real, and that these are the actual steps that you would take going forward. But then also do make alternative plans. Show that you are thinking of other options if certain elements were to fall through. Definitely think about potential international partners that can absolutely help an application. Identify them, explain the reason why you'd be looking to approach them, or you might already have those conversations. You might already have letters of interest that can all go towards helping your application score more points. Definitely shout about any past international experience, so that could be previous co-productions, films that have done particularly well in certain territories. You might have had particular award or festival success. Don't leave them out of the application. Don't forget about the creative, because there are, particularly for single projects, 50 points awarded to that. The minimum requirement that we ask for is a 2-page treatment for documentaries, but don't stop there. There's much more information that can be put into the application. It's kind of a free-form document that you would create that can get across just exactly where you're going with the project, your creative vision for it, and what an end project might look like. That's really what they're going to be assessing. Don't forget to address and explain your weaknesses. So it might be that you're at a very early stage of development, but don't hide away from that fact. Explain exactly what you want the money to do, why you're in the situation you're in. I've talked about the importance of the team and really identifying who's going to be doing what and when. And then there are published criteria, award criteria, which break down all of the points that can be awarded in the form. So it's a good idea to look through those before you start the application and as you're writing your strategies too. Okay, moving on from development, the other fund that we have available is TV programming. So this is specifically for TV documentaries. And it's support for the production and distribution of European television programs. So for this, we would expect you to come to us with a number of broadcasters already attached to pre-sales or co-production deals in order to get a percentage of your production budget. That's 20% of your budget for creative documentaries, and that's capped at 300,000 euros. So that's the total that you could apply for. And what projects are eligible? Again, we're looking at a total duration of 50 minutes, either a one-off documentary or a series. And it needs to be intended primarily for TV exploitation. So it can have a festival release. With documentary, it's a little bit more fluid in terms of the timeline for that. But the ultimate goal has to be that it will end up on television. The project must be majority produced by companies. that are established in the countries participating in the program. Again, we look at your company's house registration details there, and produced with a significant number of professionals who are either nationals or residents of those countries. So within the guidelines, there's a table, and you're awarded points based on where your director comes from, where your editor comes from, where the lab is based, your locations, that kind of thing. You need to score a certain number of points in that table in order to be eligible. 50% of the total financing must come from European sources, and then the exploitation rights licensed to the broadcaster have to revert back to the producer after a period of 7 years for pre-sales or 10 years for a co-production. So that's something that needs to be written into your letters of commitment when you're asking for them from the broadcasters. So who can apply for this one? As I said, countries established in the media subprogram, countries participating in the media subprogram, owned by nationals from those countries. Again, you've got to have audiovisual production as your main business activity, so we'll be looking at your SIC code for that, independent from broadcasters, and you need to own the majority of the rights to the project in a similar way to the development schemes. So when is the right time to apply for this scheme? You need at least 3 broadcasters attached, and those 3 broadcasters have to come from European countries. And you need to have at least 50% of your total financing confirmed through third-party sources. So that's when you're ready to apply, is when you've got those things in place. And you can apply anytime before you go into principal photography. So the cutoff is when you sort of start that main block of filming. For TV programming, points are awarded mostly on those letters of commitment through the broadcasters. So there's up to 30 points for, the potential for European and international distribution of the project. Those 30 points are broken down in 2 categories. So if you only have the 3 broadcasters and the minimum 3 different countries, you can only score a maximum of 10 points. You want to put yourself up into the next bracket by getting more broadcasters on board in a variety of countries, geographical, linguistic diversity, all of those things, in order to secure the maximum points there. Again, we look at the European dimension of the project, its financing, there's 30 points awarded to that. Your distribution marketing strategy and the project team are also important. Again, there are some automatic points for low and medium production capacity countries. This time it's only 5 for both categories, and the projects specifically targeted at the under 16-year-olds, as I said, get 5 points in this scheme. So tips for TV programming. There's a number of things you should make sure each letter from broadcasters contain. The name of your production company, the title of your project, make sure the license fee and license period are in there, the information regarding the licensed territories, the kind of rights taken, and the fact that it needs to be signed and recently dated as well is quite important. These are all things that are going to be checked off by the evaluators to make sure that you are hitting those eligibility criteria. Make sure the letters are on headed paper. Emails do not substitute letters of commitment. Make sure they look professional and real. And again, you would be surprised the number of emails we get sent. And then also see description of the award criteria again. It's really useful that they publish the experts evaluation guides for these schemes so you can see what they'll be using to evaluate your application form. Very quickly, I just wanted to mention 2 funds that you wouldn't apply to us directly for, but they are funded through a scheme we run called the International Co-Production Fund Scheme. That's the IDFA Bertha Fund Europe and World Cinema Fund Europe too. They both have 2 sets of deadlines, one for co-production, so they can fund co-production of projects between partners that are looking at, European partners working with other producers in developing countries. Is their main focus. And they can fund either the co-production of those projects or distribution as well. And you can see there's some deadlines coming up there. Each one has its own own eligibility criteria, own application process. I would recommend looking at their websites to sort of find out more if you are interested in those.